What is up, everyone? It's Martino, and you're listening to the Broker's Blueprint, where we break down what's actually working in real estate, not just what sounds good on paper. Today, you'll notice I am solo. I'm flying solo. We have both of our co-hosts. Nick, he's in Puerto Rico. Chris, he's got 2 employees. He's all onboarding today. So, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Going to be a little alone time for the 2 of us here to kind of break down a little bit more in depth on really important questions, I think, that are in the real estate investing space, especially for savvy investors. So if you're someone who's got a couple properties, this episode is for you as always. Big shout out to our guys Taylor and Vince behind the cameras here, making us look good, me look good, at least on this episode. Like I said, today's episode is for the sharp investors, the ones asking deeper questions because they've done a deal or 2 and they're looking to scale smart, not just big. I'm answering the top 5 questions I get from experienced investors who are trying to unlock that next level. So, without further ado, let's just get into it. Question 1 that I find this probably the funniest question, and I'll kind of explain why, but how do I analyze if a deal is good or not? Now, look, this question is tailored, no pun intended, Taylor. This question is tailored to the individual always. So hopefully we've already had a prior conversation about their goals. But it's almost like asking someone, or it's like going to a barber and you sit in the chair and he says, "What do you want?" And you say, "Just give me a good haircut." What's he going to do? This guy he doesn't know what you like. Same thing in the business, any business, especially real estate. It's not just about the cap rate or cash flow for some people. Savvy investors look for the full picture, such as cash on cash return, IRR, and cap rates are a huge metric that you're going to use. And now if it's a long-term rental, I want to see cash on cash. Once the building's been stabilized, if it's a long-term rental, I'm planning on holding this, I want to see cash on cash return. Now it's simple. You kind of take whatever cash you put out of pocket and then divide it by the cash you're getting back at the end of the year. That cash on cash return is going to be typically, you could be very surprised, but around like 15 to 20% ideally. Maybe 25, 35 if it's a really, really good deal. And why the cash on cash is so important to me is it tells me how soon I'm going to get paid back my break-even point on my initial investment. So if it's a $100,000 property, and I put down, 20,000, 20% down, and I'm cash flowing 20,000 at the end of, let's just say 5,000 at the end of every year is my cash flow, and I'm 20,000 in the deal, simple math. I'm going to get my cash back in 4 years plus upside appreciation. Now, once again, this can go into other, if you're not looking for something long-term, let's just say you're burring a property, right? Which is when you buy it, you renovate it, you rent it out, and then you refinance. Sometimes you don't have to rent it out. You could just get an appraisal and refinance. So if you bought a flip, you're in at 100, you put 100 in, it appraises for 350, 400, which is really where you want to be for those to make the spread worth it. You're looking at a completely different metric there. You're looking at, all right, what is going to be basically like my exit cap? What am I getting back? So if I put, X amount in, what am I getting X amount out? And then you can run your numbers that way. So just what is a good deal depends on what kind of deals are you looking to do. And I really can't emphasize that enough. But to know how a good deal is a good deal is those 2 things. What is my exit cap if it's a flip? What is my profit margin? Pretty straightforward, guys. And then if you're doing something that's a long-term hold, cash on cash return and cap rate, very, very simple metrics to know whether or not you're going to be able to keep, this property for a long time. Is it going to be cash flowing and sustainable in the long term? So that's the first main question that I get. Now on to question 2. How do I scale from one to a full portfolio of rental units? Now scaling is about systems and capital flow, and you can't scale if you're trying to manage everything yourself. I think that's something that we've always talked about on this show is you need to get leverage. You need to get a team of people. and we've talked about this on prior episodes, but an accountant, an attorney, a great broker or a handful of brokers, wholesalers, deal makers, let's just call them, contractors. I always like to have a really, really good capital partner. I think that is the biggest part of a team, because without the money, you can't do any of this. Without leverage, unless you've worked W-2 or in an entrepreneurial business and have a lot of money sitting in an account, I think you're still going to want to finance here. And I'll tell you why. And this is to the question, right, of how do I scale? You need to leverage money just as much as people. So having a great capital broker is exactly what you need. And we can dive into it a little bit with the systems, right? So in order for real estate to truly be passive, you need a property manager. So a great property manager, in order for you to track, measure, and monitor and actually understand your numbers, you're going to need a tight bookkeeper, something monthly with a P&L of what you're spending versus what you're getting in. And then this is my favorite thing is spreadsheets, right? Repeatable deal analysis, spreadsheets. Any great broker, you ask them what kind of, spreadsheets they're using, they're going to have so many. And it goes back to my previous point of what kind of deals you're looking for. So you'll have your BRRRR spreadsheet, you'll have your long-term hold spreadsheet, your fix and flip, all that good stuff. Leverage. So systems, leverage. We just talked about that. It might be getting a loan from a lender straight up. You put 20% down and you leverage $80,000. So you can buy that $100,000 property, which we all know is just an example. You can't find shit for $100,000 anymore. But that leverage could be a few things. It could be a cash out refinance. It could be a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, or like I just said, it could be a lender partner. And then this is the biggest thing, guys, that I have always done for myself in my business, and something that I see all of my best clients doing. When I say best, I don't mean like they're the best people or the smartest, but the ones who are doing it at the best rate and truly scaling is capital recycling, where you're taking all of the cash that you're making, the cash flow even, and you're just going to buy more properties. You're just recycling that money back into your own business in order to get the most leveraged returns. And for a lot of people, that's not easy. I know for me, I like having a good time. I like taking my earnings and I like moving forward, celebrating a little bit. But like living below your means is the best thing you can do in real estate. There's a really good story I think of, and we've had him on the show, Jordan Katz, and I wish he could have been here today. Shout out Jordan. But first time I meet Jordan, and just for preference, you guys already know if you've seen the show, Jordan's got 40, 50 units now between new construction that he's built, houses that he's bought turnkey, and properties he's renovated. So he's done these strategies that we're discussing already. And Jordan, he calls me on a 4-unit that I had off market in West Passyunk. It's like 18th and Passyunk. Jordan comes pulling up in a Honda Accord. I don't know anything about the guy. This is 3-4 years ago. Just called me on it, saw my email blast about it, and was interested. He was in my brokerage, so got the email. Pulls up in a Honda Accord. I'm thinking already like, all right, this guy's, just another guy. Nothing crazy. Nothing wrong with him, but nothing like special, right? As we kind of built our relationship over the years, it cracks me up thinking back to that moment because, and I think he still has the Honda Accord. I wish he was here to ask him. I think he still is slinging, driving for dollars. He's still pulling up to the office in the same freaking car. And then, of course, you go and find out he's got 40 units at the time, and he's still, growing and scaling. I think he was in his mid to early 30s when we met. So point being, guys, living below your means, not going to buy the fancy car after you just made it a really good deal and cashed out of it or whatever you did or sold it. I'm telling you guys, for investors, we're all building portfolios. Always try to keep as many properties as you can and always try to recycle that capital from your cash flow of other properties into new properties or existing properties by adding value, renovating, or whatever it could be. There's so many options. Typically, those are the two. You can renovate, put that money back into capital improvements of your existing properties, or go acquire more, go acquire new ones. My favorite form of capital recycling is the 1031 exchange. And this is something that is, kind of dead right now in a lot of aspects. Still alive for those people who need it, because a lot of people are selling off their old asset that now is having, so adjustable mortgages are kind of starting to tick, right? So if you got something in 20 on a 5-year ARM, it's 2025. Ring, ring, wake up. Your interest rate's coming up about 2%, 3%, maybe even 4-5%, depending on how low you got it back in 21, 20. Point being, people selling those buildings because they can't afford the note anymore, the adjustable rates jacked up through the roof, they're the only ones really looking for maybe a 1031 exchange play. Other than that, though, with the new interest rates, people are just kind of selling, taking a hit. The reason you want to do a 1031 exchange, and you guys, most of you already know this, is you can defer capital gains, extensive capital gains. So if you made, $1 million, those capital gains, government could look to take somewhere near 200,000 of your earnings. So just keep that in mind. Now, this is a great segue into my next question. And people that just even have one property ask me this all the time. And I'm like, you don't need to worry about this just yet. But when does a 1031 exchange actually make sense? And not every deal should be a 1031 exchange. I firmly believe that. But if you've got a big gain and you're ready to move into something better performing or with a higher appreciation opportunity, then yeah, it's worth doing. If it makes sense, it makes sense if you want to defer taxes on a high equity deal. If you're moving from an active management position to more passive income. So let's just say you've had a building, 6 units or 7 units, you've been managing it yourself, and you've been working, dealing with the property and, and enjoying it hopefully, but we all know working with tenants is work. And you're saying to yourself after 5-6 years now doing this, maybe 10, 9, maybe 20 years, I'm done. I really want to get a property manager and create this passive income. I think at that point, yeah, you could absolutely keep that building and just implement a property management system, or you could buy something turnkey, already has a management system in place, something that has proof of concept that you see works. So having that money become passive would be a really good way or reason for me to want to 1031 exchange an asset. The key with the 1031 is also, do you want to stay in that same asset class or like kind property? Once again, for better returns or appreciation upside. So if you have a residential property, it's got to be for a residential. If you have a commercial, it's got to be for a commercial. Industrial. You can't go and sell your single family home, 1031 it into a commercial triple net lease. So there's intricacies of the 1031 exchange that a lot of people ask me about as well. I think it's important to know. And this is something, side note, but very crucial if you're going to execute on a 1031 exchange. It's the identification window of when you sell to when you find your next property. And find is defined by, I believe, and I'll verify this, but getting the property under contract. So once you get that property under contract within 45 days, then you have a really comfortable cushion of 180 days after that to close on it, which should be plenty of time. You can find your capital partners, find your leverage, understand if the deal makes sense. And if not, you kick that one to the side. You have another 45 days to go find your next one. Quick correction. I had to ChatGPT this one. If that 45-day period you end up falling out of contract and or if you find it within the 45 days, you put it under contract, and you find out that the deal fell through for any reason, you do not have the opportunity unless you have something else already lined up to go and try to actually still 1031. So that 45-day window is crucial. Taylor, I don't know. I think we just kind of keep the episode the way it is and just be like fact check, because we're all wanting to make sure that this is 100% accurate. But it's a very rare scenario where the property you've identified does fall out of contract. It does happen. So it's important to know if it does, you will not have that extra 45 days to go find a new one and take your time. So my advice would be identify a few properties that you'd want a 1031 exchange into. well even before the sale of yours. So as soon as the 45-day period starts, you can start to do your due diligence, if not even before you settle on your property, very early on in that 45 days if you sell and you're right there looking at the deals. So find 3 or 4 and then analyze them and do your due diligence before even going under contract. So once you're in, you have certainty. That's definitely a savvy investor tip right there. This is another great one, guys. I think with being in a market where deals aren't necessarily flowing as they once were, we all know those times when money was cheap and deals were out there. It's time to start to really find power partners in the industry and potentially joint venture. This is huge. The best JV deals are simple and aligned. I'm going to say that one more time. The best JV deals are simple and aligned. If you're even thinking for a second that you can't work with that person, don't even go in there. It should be simple. If you're thinking that person has a different vision than you, don't do it. You should be aligned. If you're the operator, if you're like the guy who's, actually doing the deal, right? You bring the deal, the plan, the vision, right? And then you execute on it. And then you need someone who's going to be that capital partner. And that could be the seller who you're getting the deal from. How that would look would be you want to buy a deal from someone. They're not liking the price you're giving them. Well, hey, how about you hold this and at the end of the deal, we both maybe make the numbers that we're hoping to make. But I can tell you right now, you're not going to get that number. Not from me at least, and not from most people, because the deal doesn't pencil. And we all know that saying, we all know that feeling. So you can JV with the seller if, once again, there's simplicity and alignment. They're giving you the tools to execute your vision. They need to trust you. You need to educate them and convince them that you are someone who's trustworthy and worth investing with. That's the key to joint ventures, guys. There's no secret sauce. You need to be trustworthy and reliable. Have a simple game plan that everyone can see the vision of it. Transfer that message from your mind to theirs, which is influence, we call that, and have them act upon it. So you can transfer the idea, like, Taylor, here's my idea, right? And you could say, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. That's not influence. It's him going, oh, I like that idea. How do we do this? What do we do next, right? What's the next steps for us to actually make this dream or vision a reality? Keeping it simple and keeping it aligned with your partners is going to be key. And personally, I like to structure it somewhere around these numbers if you're going to be doing just a straight capital partnership. They get a preferred return, and Chris will talk about this all the time on our show. If you ever have any questions directly, call Chris Terrio, one of our co-hosts here, and you get a preferred return. Typically, that's going to be around 8%, give or take. Riskier markets, higher return. Safer play, safer returns. After that, profits, they need to be split based on equity positions. So, this is a perfect world. Let's just say the guy's asset is $500,000 and the work that you're going to be doing is $500,000. It's a perfect 50-50 split. And ideally, the sale is more than $1 million, so you guys don't just break even. And that's not assuming soft costs or anything. Ideally, look, real estate's great. It's very special. You could be all in at $1 million and be looking at a $250,000 profit, which a lot of people just look for 25 to 35%. And then you could also be in a position where you've really timed the deal right. You're all in $1 million. The market's hot. Some great news came around the corner with jobs coming. X, Y, and Z happened. Whatever it may be. You could be looking at maybe a $2 million profit. And then you guys are both very happy. So joint ventures, guys, they're so important, I think, to consider if you're really in love with the deal, but you just can't do it yourself. You need some help. And look, at the end of the day, if you don't have that alignment, you're done. You don't even want to start it because you're going to go down into a path of no return. And anyone who's done a successful joint venture will tell you the reason it was successful is because both parties were on the same page. And if you ask anyone who's been in a bad JV, a bad partnership, it's because we both did not see eye to eye. So that's it. Alignment is key there. And once you do have that alignment, hopefully you find it. If not, no worries, right? It's still good to do deals yourself or whatever it is. But in the market we're in, you got to consider it because there's not a lot of deals out there. It's not like you have your pick of the litter anymore. And if you really like the location of the play or the numbers of that play, educating that partner and getting them on the same page as you is going to be crucial. I'm happy to dive further into that stuff as well on how to convey your vision. It's what I've really worked on my entire career, conveying your identity, who you are, and then also conveying your vision and why you're doing what you're doing. If you can explain those three things, you should have no problem getting other people to be influenced by you. And that's a very powerful tool in real estate is gaining influence. Allows you to execute and do more deals. Best investors I know, they have a vision, they have a mission, they have a purpose. And they can convey that so well. And that's why they've gotten funding from others. That's why they've gotten partnerships with others. So take some time to truly understand those things before going and just trying to bury a deal down someone's throat because the numbers look great. It has to be more important than just the numbers maybe. What are the numbers going to do for you and your family? What are the numbers going to do for your portfolio? Think deep. Think a little bit beyond the surface of just what real estate investing looks like. It's truly about financial freedom. And I know I'm getting off into a tangent here, but this is really the core of what makes people great, is having more than just a money mindset. It's the ability to truly think with a deeper purpose than just money, truly. So when you're going into these plays and you're making these moves, especially joint ventures, 1031 exchanges, why am I doing this? Got to have a strong why, or else none of this will make any sense to you. It's just too big and too scary if you're not truly motivated. And the weak, we've all seen it, they get weeded out real quick. The strong survive and they thrive, especially in markets like this, because they're willing to do what it takes. In these small little tips I'm giving you here, it's all coming straight from experience with people I've worked with and myself. Now, the fifth and final question, and I love this question as an agent, as a broker, as an investor myself. How do I consistently find off-market deals? Now, this one separates the real players from the dabblers. You need three things: relationships, wholesalers, agents, attorneys, inspectors, lenders. Why? Wholesalers and agents are at the front lines making relationships with sellers all day, every day. Attorneys are working with sellers as well through processes, and if anything falls through and they think you could be someone to pick it up, they're going to call you first. And inspectors, they inspect properties that end up having major defects, and what once someone thought they could get as a seller is now. Investors, you need to understand inspectors are a great asset to have, and agents, get inspectors, to really, really love and trust you, because they will call you as soon as a deal has any potential threat of falling through, and they can give you a heads up as soon as it does. I mean, legally, I don't think you can just go ahead and call people and be like, hey, I don't even want you to call me if you think it might fall through. If it falls through, you call me, and if the seller really needs help, we're going to come right to that need, right? We're going to tend to that wound and see what we can do on our end to help get them out of that asset now that they know it's very defected. So 1, relationships. 2, direct sourcing. And I love my clients who are out there actually doing these things. When I say direct sourcing, I mean driving for dollars, going around neighborhoods. I know a guy, great guy. He's now a huge developer in the city. I hope he's listening and knows this is him. I'm not going to say his name. But he used to drive around Graduate Hospital. It's a great neighborhood in South Philadelphia. And he would drive around and just write down all the addresses of properties that were 2 or 3 story with window units. Because if a window unit was hanging out of that window, what do you think it meant? It wasn't renovated yet. There's no central AC. No one's gone in there and actually turned it around, flipped it, and improved it. So the reason he liked that was earlier in the episode I talked about kind of cap exits and all that good stuff, kind of your profit after a flip. That was his metric. I mean, he wanted to hit those numbers of probably upwards of 30% returns. So if you're all in at 100,000, you're making 30,000, which is great. If you're all in at $1 million, you're making 300,000, which is great. And those numbers just get more and more exponential. Sometimes you hit 40%. Sometimes you're a little off and you hit 20%, but you kind of want to hover around the 30. It's a big lesson he taught me. But driving around, you're looking for opportunities that align with your vision, your mission, your purpose. If you know you have a great contracting team and you enjoy the process of flipping homes, you should be doing the same thing. You should be looking for tear downs or buildings that have not been renovated yet, and just simply finding the information, and there's ways to do that. Or you just tell your agent, hey, I drove for dollars. Here are the addresses. I need you to just direct mail these people for me. And that's what agents are for, because you don't have the time, maybe on top of your full-time job or managing your portfolio, whatever you're doing, to sit down and write letters for 3-4 hours and make calls for 2-3 hours. And why would you? Like, you want to make this a passive income for yourself and financial freedom. Unless you like talking to sellers, which I love, that's why I'm an agent, there's no need for you to do it. If you're not a fan of it, you don't want to cold call and put yourself out there, have someone do it on your behalf, and I'm happy to. As all of you know, I'm a cold call freak. I genuinely love the thrill of being able to pick up the phone and make a new best friend. And I've actually gone to people's weddings from people that I've cold called. I'm not kidding. Shout out Rav. You know who you are. Met on a cold call, brokered a deal, helped him buy another triplex, and the rest is history. We're going to be hanging out later tonight. Texted me this morning. So those are the two things. Driving for dollars, mailers, and we've already talked about this, but code violation lists. So if you see a property's being, fined every day, there's a seller that's in distress in some capacity there, whether they can put a Band-Aid on it and fix it or not, we have to find out, and that's what we do by doing the outreach. But look at those violation lists and see which buildings are being condemned. Make safe permits are not, or easy permits aren't being pulled, so they have make safe violations. Look at those three things, and you'll be finding more deals consistently. This is key, guys. I'm going to drop the phone for this one. So you're looking for good deals consistently, right? Good deals are typically a little bit below where you're buying them a little bit below what they should go for, right? So if a property should sell for $200,000, you're getting it at 180, 175, 150 is fantastic. If you're getting it at 125, it's a steal. If you're getting it at 100,000, that's messed up. You shouldn't be getting it. I'm kidding. If you can find these deals, the lower the better, right? But how do you actually make that incentivizing to a seller? Because they should know that they're not getting close to what they want. I mean, there's so much technology out there nowadays, guys. They can go on Zillow and look up their Zestimate and be like, oh, this guy offered me $80,000. They look up their house on Zillow and see the Zestimate is like $200,000 or $225,000. They're going to be like, oh, I'm going to go, I'm going to call Zillow and I'm going to have an agent list my property. This is for the people that don't really have any relationships. And you see them all over, at least in Philadelphia, you see them all over the city. So back to the main point, though. How are you going to get someone to take your discounted offer? There's only one way, and that is speedy closing. There is no way to get consistent deals if you're taking 30 to 60 days, maybe even 90 days to close on a deal. Obviously, depending on the size of it, quick closing can be many different things. If it's a standard $200,000 house that needs, a rehab, you don't need to do any due diligence on that. All you need to do is just get a hard money loan or use your cash, some kind of form of funds, which that's a pretty reasonable price point. Or you can even get a certain loan product that will help you finance the purchase and the construction. That's, for a first-time buyer, you have an FHA 203K loan, which allows you to bundle the renovation and the purchase price. So let's just say it's a $200K purchase price. You need to put $100 in. They're going to give you the $300,000 in draws too. And at the end of it, you got to make sure you know your out sales, obviously, but you should be selling that thing for $450, $400, taking your spread, doing that project in a few months, turning around and getting your money out. Once again, recycling your money. So really quickly, just to dial it back here, if you want to get deals consistently, knowing your agents, knowing your brokers, knowing your inspectors, lenders, they're all relationships. Having people on your team, deals will be flowing there. Just ask anyone who's at a high level. there's just deals that just float around with these top capital investors, and it finds their way to them if they have the right relationships, and a lot of them do. I don't know many people who have big portfolios sitting behind their computers all day. They're out, they're meeting people, they're going to events and networking, they're going out with intention and purpose for this reason, to get more consistent deal flow. 2, driving for dollars, looking at the code violations list, making sure you're looking for those assets that you're looking for. And then once again, just to go back to it, the biggest point is once you find those deals, be able to actually offer a value to that seller, because they're just going to go on the market and you're going to compete with everyone else if you can't get them a term of a quick close that they really want. Because typically motivated sellers want to close quick. Motivated sellers want to close quick. Be able to pull the trigger with your hard money or cash and have a title company who can run title within 10 days, which is possible. Sometimes you can even put a rush order in. If you can close within 2 weeks, you should be able to pick up more consistently deals that match your criteria. So that's really the key takeaways here. I really hope you guys took a lot out of this, and there's definitely some things that we could dive deeper on for sure, but I wanted to really make sure that we understood the key concepts for savvy investors in 2025. Whether you're joint venturing, thinking about it, whether you're just looking for more consistent deal flow, or maybe you have some deals coming at you at 100 miles an hour, but don't know how to calculate that good deal, give us a call, right? We're happy to build your systems out for you, or at least show you how we built ours out. And once again, we're a product of what we do. We're not just we're consumers of what we do. We're not just people here telling you what to do without having our own experience. So don't hesitate. I really did enjoy just kind of clearing the smoke, cutting through the noise here this episode. If you found what you were looking for or thought this was valuable, please like and subscribe to the channel. Me, my non-present co-host, me and my non-present co-host, we are very appreciative of the support so far. We have some great viewers and listeners that have reached out to us already. Please continue to do so. It's a lot of fun, guys, and we're building something special here at the Broker's Blueprint. Please stay tuned, and we'll see you next week.